Hello, I'm Joel Hargis with the Florida Aviation Network. We're here at Sun and Fun 2024. It's the 50th anniversary. It is a beautiful day. It's been a great show, I tell you what. It's been great crowds. We've had great weather other than a little spat one Thursday afternoon. And so we're here in the studio today. And this particular interview is actually a Wings Fast Safety Seminar. So at the end of the show, we'll give you that information. But I would like to introduce to you Dr. Busch. Hello, Doc.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. So Dr. Busch is an AME, and if you're a pilot, you need a medical, right? And that's one of the first things you get as a student pilot. You got to get a medical. Mm-hmm. And so there are different. I don't know that it's real convoluted, but it is a bit, right? And how long you been in AME, Doc?
I've been an AME, I hate to say it, but I think since the early 90s.
Okay, a while.
A while, yeah. Now, I was an AME while I was on active duty with the Navy also. I did Navy flight surgery medicine, and I also did civilian AME work, FAA stuff.
All right.
I didn't have any other hobbies, though. I was kind of busy. So.
Well, that's not true, because Dr. Busch he's a pilot, and he's not just a pilot. He is a Navy pilot, carrier pilot. I read that over 30 different type of military aircraft.
Yep, I think so.
So he's been, humble. But so AME and a pilot, a serious pilot. So the cool thing is he gets it. From our side, the pilot side. And so let's educate our audience a little bit. So there are basically 4 different levels of a medical you can get as a pilot.
Correct. So if you are a first timer and you want to get a medical from the FAA so that you can fly as pilot in command of an aircraft, there's basically 3 different levels. There's Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. The Class 1 is for airline captains. The Class 3 is for everybody else that does not get paid to fly. Hobbyists, recreationalists, personal aircraft. Class 3 are pilots that are not paid to fly. Class 1 are airline captains. And the reason I skipped Class 2 is because that's the biggest category. That's all other commercial operations. From airline co-pilot, crop dusting, banner towing, corporate level, commercial, that's all those. So Class 2 is the biggest category.
All right.
Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. And each one has different standards, and each one has different time, lengths, and levels depending on your age.
And that was going to be my next question. So let's start at Class 3. That's what I keep because I don't get paid to fly myself.
Okay. So let's say that you come into for a Class 3 and you have nothing wrong with you, and it's your first time,
right?
And you're healthy. Okay. If you're under 40 and you pass with the medical with me or another AME, you'll be issued a medical that's good for 5 years.
Really?
Under 40, 5 years.
I don't get that.
No. Over 40 is 2 years.
Right.
Over 40 is 2 years. Okay. Now, Class 2.
Wait. Before you jump on, is there standards for Class 3 that increase in 2 and 1? Isn't there?
Yes.
So what are the minimums for 3?
Well, the big difference is in the vision. You still have to be healthy. Your heart has to be beating in a regular rate, usually.
Right.
You have to be awake and alert. So, the point is, it's all about the vision. Class 3 standards, the vision in Class 3 is more aligned with the DMV, the driving of a car. You can have up to 20/40 even corrected at distance.
Just 20/40 corrected?
Yeah.
So you don't have to be corrected.
The Class 3 standards for eyes is like the driver's lessons.
Okay.
Cars.
All right.
About the same.
Love it.
And then the rest of it is the same as a Class 2 and Class 1.
And so I'm going to pause there a little bit because as a medical professional, your practice is ophthalmology.
Oh, boarded in ophthalmology.
So the guy knows eyes is my point. The guy knows eyes.
And it's kind of interesting because I did choose to go into ophthalmology because of its relationship with aviation.
Really?
Well, I like aviation. I was a naval aviator with thousands of hours of flight time before the Navy even sent me to medical school.
Okay.
So when I came back and I had to eventually pick a specialty to go do my residency in, I wanted something that would have some application to aviation. And other things do not.
Right.
I can give you some examples if you want. So after I did my residency in ophthalmology at the National Naval Medical Center in Washington, D.C., I went and did a tour as the chief at Camp Lejeune, and then I went to the Naval Aerospace Medical Institute in Pensacola, where I was the chief of Navy Aerospace Ophthalmology.
Wow. Wow.
The title is a lot better than what it was. It was a regular job, but the point is, that's what I did there.
Okay.
And so again, ophthalmology was picked because of its aviation application.
Gotcha. So class 3, little less eye requirements.
Correct.
Class 2.
The eye requirements for class 2 is you have to be correctable to 20/20.
Okay.
So it's higher than class 3, but it's the
Gotcha.
same as class 1. Other than that, they're about the same.
And you get a class 2, the length or duration
Okay.
of that.
If you get a class 2 and you pass and you're under 40, it's good for 5 years.
Really?
1 year as a 2, 4 years as a 3. Dig?
Yep.
Okay.
Under 40.
Over 40, 2 years.
Right.
1 year as a 2 and 1 year as a 3.
Okay.
It's always going to be over 40, 2 years, under 40, 5 years.
Okay.
For instance, class 1, can I go there now?
Please.
Class 1 under 40 is still good for 5 years.
No kidding.
1 year as a 1, 4 years as a 3. You follow me? If you get a class 1 and you're under 40, it's good for 5 years. 1 year as a 1, 4 years as a 3. 1 plus 4 is 5.
Okay.
If you're over 40, this is the good one. If you're over 40 and you get a class 1, it's good for 6 months as a class 1.
Really?
Then 6 months as a class 2.
So an airline captain, ATP captain, left seat
So every 6 months.
every 6 months if you're over 40.
Correct.
Wow.
So 6 months as a...
So you know those guys pretty good.
Oh yeah, we become very well acquainted. So 6 months as a 12, 6 months as a 2, wait, no, let's get 6 months as a 1, 6 months as a 2, and then 12 months as a 3. 24 total months, 2 years.
Wow.
But yes, I see the airline pilots every 6 months. So if I've been practicing now, I retired from the Navy 19 years ago, and I came down here and opened up my aviation medical clinic. And some of these early guys that I've seen them a lot.
Yeah.
And that's not even if they have problems. If they have problems, then I see them more than that.
Right.
So
And so there is something else called basic med.
there is.
Which, and you will explain it better than I ever could about why basic med was brought about and what's the advantages and disadvantage from a pilot's perspective.
The history I'm sort of aware of. It's not something that the AMEs usually do much of.
Right.
That's
'Cause they
something
don't need
that's
to.
what your primary physician, your primary family practice guy does, the
Right.
basic med. Basic med is you have to meet the qualifications. If I can recall them, you have to have had a current in a medical after 2006. You can't have certain things that are neurologic or cardiac. You have to get a waiver sometimes for any first-time things, like if you had heart disease, you have to still get a waiver from the FAA before you can apply to basic med. And then you take an online course, and then you take a questionnaire and a medical exam form to your family practice doctor, and he signs off that he thinks you're safe to fly. Okay? And
Yep.
then there's some limitations on the aircraft and the flying. Continental United States only, under 18,000 feet, under 250 knots, no more than 6 seats in the aircraft, and has to weigh under 6,000 pounds.
You knew that awfully well for not doing them.
Right. Well, okay, yeah, right. We don't do them. The AMEs generally don't. I don't.
Right.
Yeah. So
Why would you go to an AME?
it's a pretty good program if it
go to
fits
your
your
doctor.
needs. It's a pretty good program if it fits your needs. To be honest with you.
Gotcha. So one of the other questions I've got for you, and particularly, a lot of pilots we're getting older. We're trying to encourage the youth to be in aviation. So what happens? Let's say that you have a slight heart attack
Wait a minute. A slight heart attack?
or a heart attack. I mean,
Oh, well, you either kind of have one or you don't. But
Yeah,
I guess
okay.
a slight one means you survive without consequences or sequelae or anything.
you end up going in and you have a double bypass
Okay.
or get
Okay.
catheterized.
Oh, so you have a heart problem and you have had a bypass or a heart surgery or a stent or some heart procedure.
Right.
Okay, then now we're going to talk about the waiver process. We first talked about the 3 classes, 1, 2, and 3, and basic med. That's assuming that everything's normal and you're going to pass. If you have a grounding condition based on the rules and regulations, then you can't fly or can't get a medical because of that issue. You have to apply for a waiver. A
Right.
waiver means exception to policy. That means the standard is this, you don't fit in there, I want a waiver to do that anyway. It's very common in the government, very common in the military. If you don't meet that standard, you can apply for a waiver. The FAA doesn't call it a waiver. They call it an authorization for special issuance.
Okay.
Or a special issuance.
Okay.
Why they do that, I don't know. They want
FAA.
So they call it a special issuance. So let's say that you have a heart condition. Let's say that you had a stent, a couple stents, or a bypass. You'll have certain things you need to do. You have to wait so long to apply for your medical, then you can apply, and then the FAA will, of course, you'll apply for your medical, but you won't be issued.
Right.
You'll be deferred. Okay, deferred means your packet is sent to the FAA for their decisions.
And you as an AME prepare that packet.
That's correct. Okay, so you send that to the FAA, and then they send you a letter telling you what they want you to do. Go see your cardiologist, get a cardiovascular exam, get a certain kind of stress test, labs, all this sort of stuff. You go do that, then through your AME, you send the stuff into the FAA, they analyze it, and if they like it, they send you a medical.
Right.
With a list of stuff to do every so often. Might be every 6 months, might be every year, to follow up on your conditions to make sure you're still good to go.
And again, all about safety. Safety is first, paramount.
The FAA at large is charged with keeping the national airspace safe. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I
would.
would.
Pretty basic.
That's it.
The medical part of the FAA is charged with keeping the national airspace safe as far as it goes to the pilot's medical conditions and mental health. So that's what it's all about.
Right.
And they want the pilots to be healthy and safe and to meet standards so that there's no in-flight incapacities or sudden incapacitations because of a medical condition.
So, again, and I want to get this out there for pilots, because I can tell you for pilots in that situation, it's scary for them, right? And a lot of them, they don't want to tell you stuff like that. They won't disclose all their medicines and stuff. Please elaborate on why that's important, and the FAA will find out.
Well, first of all, the pilots should not be too scared of that. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But the point is, they need to disclose all that stuff, because if they don't and something happens downrange, they're going to be liable for that. If they don't disclose something, okay, you didn't tell them that you took an aspirin, that's irrelevant. But if you're taking some heart medicine or some prescription, or you've had a procedure of many different categories, if you don't cough that up, the pilot's liable.
Right.
If he attracts negative attention, even if it's not his fault, and they look at him closely, well, you didn't report this,
right.
So now the pilot's liable.
You're on a statin.
And guess what? Guess what? The insurance company's going to grab onto that. They're not going to pay for your dent in your airplane. The FAA might do something worse to you, like take your medical or your pilot licenses. So I would urge all the pilots to cough it up on your exams, on your paperwork when you file for your MedExpress, what your conditions are and what medications you're taking. It's way safer, and it's especially true for the professional pilots.
Oh, for sure, and I would say all pilots, right?
Correct.
Transparency to your AME. You're there to help them.
The AME,
you're there to help them keep flying. Isn't that what you try to do?
The AME's job is to keep the pilot in the cockpit.
There you go, folks.
And if that's not the AME's job, then the AME ought to get another job.
Right. And so I think there's certainly some disconnect between what a pilot thinks and what you're actually saying. Your job is to keep them in the cockpit.
We see it all the time. The pilots, they're a strange breed of cat, and they have the fear of unknown, and the unknown is their flight surgeon.
Yeah.
Now, I will comment on this. When the pilot has a condition and the AME helps him get a waiver or a special issuance, around 95% of the time, it's successful.
Right.
In other words, don't be afraid. 95%, there's only about 8 or 10 bad conditions where you can't get a medical no matter what. Things like epilepsy, okay, for instance. Well, you can't be having an epileptic seizure while you're flying an airplane.
Nope.
So that's sudden incapacitation, and it's fairly predictable that you're going to have it, right?
Right.
So the point is, about 95% of the time that a pilot applies for a special issuance, it's granted.
Right.
And, hold on, I'm not done.
Okay.
The fact is, of the 5% that don't get it, most of those guys are because they gave up.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
They didn't
it's because
keep
they
fighting.
gave up. Because the FAA takes a while to deal with.
It does. It does. I have a good
They're
friend.
busy. They're busy. They got minimum staff, and they got just how many hundreds of thousands of pilots are there in the U.S.?
Right, applicants, yeah. So I have a buddy that has one eye. He's got a special issuance. Flown that way for 20-some years.
There are, well, there's not a lot, but there's a fair amount of pilots with only one eye, or only useful vision in one eye, which is the same thing.
Right.
One of our most famous, of course, is Wiley Post. Remember him?
Yeah.
He was one of the
know
U.S.'s first single-eyed guy. It was Wiley Post, wasn't it? I think it was, yeah.
You got me, but I know who it is. I didn't know he only had eye vision in
We'll
one
have to
eye.
look him up on our pocket computer after this, okay?
Yeah, we can do that. So, wow, man, I've learned so much. And one of the things that you do, and I don't want to go deep into this because it just touches such a small group, but you are actually an AME that can do HIMS processing, which is, I don't know what that acronym stands for, but that's a pilot that
That's correct.
Had a
okay, the HIMS
issue,
program.
drugs.
The HIMS program is a program designed to help and rehabilitate pilots that have alcohol, drug, and mental health problems. And it all started with the airlines decades ago because, you know, you've got a senior airline pilot with 20 or 25 or 30,000 hours. You can't replace him. It takes decades to.
Right.
It takes decades to get 20,000 hours.
Right.
So these guys were getting they were getting skewed on alcohol, for instance, which is the most common of the three. And instead of just getting rid of them or firing them or ending their career, they would go through rehab and get back in the cockpit and become proficient and safe again. And that's where this program is. And I have a fairly large program, HIMS program, in my practice.
And not, I mean, it's actually a very small group of AMEs that participate in HIMS.
Not every AME does it. It's not that fun, and it's also labor intensive with a lot of paperwork and dealing with the government. And you know, these pilots that get in trouble with alcohol, for instance, drugs and mental health also, but it's mostly alcohol. A DUI, for instance. I mean, that pilot may be out of the cockpit for a year to 18 months, going through rehabilitative measures and going and doing things in conjunction with his application to get back in the cockpit. So right there alone, that's a pain.
Yeah.
And then when the pilot gets back and accepted into the program, the HIMS program officially, and can go back to flying, they've got almost daily things to do to prove their sobriety.
Right.
And they're sticking to their recovery efforts every day. I mean, I know guys that do something every day for that. They get randomly tested, they go to AA, they have sponsors, they go to counseling, they go to group therapy, and this is after they've done it. So I guess my comment for that is, don't do it.
Right.
Don't get
Don't
negative.
drink and drive. And
that's it. Yeah.
Don't do
So
that.
drinking is legal and driving is legal. Just doing them together is not legal.
Right. So we're down to literally less than 2 minutes. Tell me what you do at Stallion 51. You're wearing their logo. I mean, I know you fly all kinds of warbirds, but we got about a minute and a half.
Well, I run the AME office there, AvDoc 51. You can look it up on the internet. And I'm busy doing that. I do fly recreational now. I have a T-34 and had a T-28 before that, so some Navy trainers I like flying.
Right.
And I'm just there, you know, enjoying my life.
You like to hang out with old warbirds and people that fly old warbirds.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy my practice. I mean, I have aviators from all over the world coming because of the flight schools here. I mean, I got a guy from Moscow one day and a guy from the Philippines the next, and China and all over the country. And then, of course, the HIMS program, once the pilot comes in, he has to stick with that AME. You can't switch easily. So we get those guys, and a lot of interesting characters, some celebrities, and it's fun.
Some celebrities.
It's fun.
Anybody? You can't share that stuff.
I never would.
Right. Client, doctor confidentiality. I get it. Well, and Dr. Busch, you're fascinating. I could sit and talk to you for an hour, dude.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, really. You're great. And we didn't even get to fun stuff. How many traps you got on the carrier? Did I ask you? What'd you say? I don't remember if I asked you on air.
A lot.
I think you told me approaching 500.
Yeah.
And guys, that's the hardest thing there is to do in flying, period. And at night trap, you know, landing on a carrier.
That was a long time ago. I mean, I'm almost 70 years old.
Yeah.
That was back when I was in my 20s.
And that's when it was hard. You know, I talked to the Hornet boys yesterday, and I asked them night traps. He says, no, we got the red carpet now. It's not that big.
The magic carpet. I just found out about that a few months ago.
Yeah, I just heard about it yesterday.
Yeah, that is incredible.
Yeah, they said it's just way easier. You know, just boop, boop, and they got the ball. So anyway, as we wind down here, this is a FAA Fast Safety Seminar. So the number you need for that will roll in the credits here just momentarily. I am Joel Hargis with the Florida Aviation Network, here with Dr. Busch, Sun and Fun 2024, the 50th anniversary. Come out and see us. See you next time.